Holiday is now gone. Al Horford is most likely gone as well. Why is he behind Joel Embiid after what he did this past season? Karl Anthony Towns got to the Eastern Conference Finals and was a third-team All-NBA player. Why is he behind a guy who, again, had 19 games under his belt? And Trae Young, that's fair. Trae Young, they didn't do much, but their team, their front office had a pretty good offseason. How is he in front? How is he in front of those guys? That's because Sean Powell is simply saying, look, I respect the guy, and I respect the guy so much that I am going to put him in here. I am going to sit him in this spot because he is Joel Embiid at the end of the day, and I am not going to disrespect Joel Embiid if he is healthy after missing all that time and can come back and play. Then what's going on? So that's where I look at it, what Sean Powell had to say, how he felt about what Joel Embiid could potentially do this upcoming season, and what that might all look like for Embiid and the Sixers, where he obviously feels like something is pretty good enough for Joel Embiid after missing all that time. There's no reason to believe that he is not going to be back and be healthy enough to not healthy enough to be up there and be in that top 10 overall. Now, the question is, should he be 6? Should he be 6? Should he be that high? And just to give a quick indication as we kind of reset things, Sean Powell of the NBA.com had Joel Embiid in the top 6. He's number 6 on their top 10 Eastern Conference player ranking. No Tatum, no Halliburton because of the injury, assuming they're going to be out. Right now, Joel Embiid is sitting 6th in front of Evan Mobley at 7, Jaylen Brown 8, Karl Anthony Towns at 9, and Trae Young at 10. In front of him, Cade Cunningham, Paolo Banchero, Donovan Mitchell, Jalen Brunson, and at number 1, Giannis Antetokounmpo. So here's his breakdown of why Joel Embiid is sitting at number 6. It's pretty quick read, so it shouldn't take too much time. Some might argue that a former MVP, key MVP, just 2 seasons ago was slotted too low, while others will cite his inability to stay on the floor. He's too high. The truth is right here in the middle at number 6 for a center who is a force when healthy. The facts are Embiid has never played 69 or more games in the season, has played just 58 combined the last 2, including 19 last year. His conditioning is a perpetual issue, and his height, combined with his weight, could cause availability problems for the remainder of his career. That said, he's an MVP candidate when fit and motivated and can take over games at both ends. He's averaged 30.6 points per game or more in 3 of the past 4 seasons, is a decent three-point shooter, has a career 11 rebounds per game average, and is among the game's best shot blockers. That's his assessment as to why Embiid is sitting at number 6. Fair.
Yeah.
And what does that say about the talent base in the East as well?
That they're injured.
Fair.
That 3 of the top players in the East are injured. You've got, obviously, Halliburton. You've got Tatum out. And then you've got Dame as well.
Dame is gone, though, now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, he probably wouldn't be gone if he wasn't hurt. Regardless, it doesn't matter.
Fair. Yep.
And then you've got Embiid, who's just a massive question mark. And again, like I said at the top of the show, I think this is really tough because it feels to me like it's going to be one of 2 outcomes. Either Joel Embiid comes back and he's looking like the player he previously was, and he's a top 3 player in the East, or he struggles to come back, isn't himself, doesn't have near the same impact defensively, and he's probably not a top 6 player in the East. So I'm not the author said that this was like the truth is somewhere in the middle, somewhere around 6. I'm not sure that's the truth. I feel like that's sort of like maybe a median outcome, but I'm not sure it's actually a probable outcome because it does feel very much like it's either a can or cannot. Either he comes back and he's dominant and he's playing regularly and he's a much better player than that, or he struggles to come back and he's playing infrequently and he's playing like a shell of himself and he's nowhere near the 6th best player in the East. It is like everything else we have talked about with this team. It is an almost impossible prediction to make. And I wish it wasn't the case. It does feel like, there are big men who have come back from meniscus surgeries and played well. There are big men who have come back from, like, for example, bone bruises and whatnot and have played well. It just doesn't ever seem like that's our reality. Whether it is like, Simmons and he has like an innocuous fall and next thing you know, his back's never the same. Or obviously Joel Embiid with repeated injuries. It just feels like we don't get the Brook Lopez outcome. I don't know why. Maybe that's a little defeatism on my part. It just feels like we don't get that good luck. So I think that's why everyone is sitting here saying like, I can't trust this guy. But it has happened before. I hope it does happen. And this ranking looks stupid in 6 months from now.
Now, I'll ask you this too. of the players that are behind him, Mobley, Brown, Towns, and Young, should he be dropped down a little bit further? Should either or any of those players be in front of him for this ranking for right now before the season starts?
I think if you're going sheerly off of like expected value, you probably would.
And this
drop
is
him
also
down.
goes off of what happened last year to lead into that expected value.
Yeah, I do wonder a little bit about Brown specifically. You know, I think as he is asked to be a you know, not just a focal point as a scorer, but as a real creator, as a real hub of an offense, I think he might take a step back in terms of his efficiency, just in terms of his warts and his, you know, lack of real elite playmaking might show up a little more. Maybe his defense drops off a little bit because he's asked to do so much more. Like I could see him taking a step back, maybe putting up higher counting stats, but less efficiency and a little less defense. You know, Mobley's tough because he's just got so much more of a limited role, albeit he excels at that in a huge way. So he's, I think, a little bit tough to gauge. But again, I think if you were just saying like, all right, well, which player is going to add the most value over replacement player this year, you could probably make an argument to justify dropping Joel Embiid down just because he has so much volatility in his likely outcomes. But I do think at some point you just got to be like, all right, but like, who are the actual impactful basketball players? Which I think is probably where he gets putting him at 6 here. Even if 6 isn't a realistic outcome that might actually occur,
Yeah.
at some point you just go like, all right, he's clearly a better basketball player, so I've got to put him up here.
Yeah, and it's tough again because Towns was a third-team All-NBA player. He had a big, big impact on what they did winning those 50-plus games, back-to-back seasons for the Knicks in the first time in a long time.
And yet he and Brunson got picked on a little bit in the playoffs too.
He did. They absolutely did. But, you know, again, for what they did last season and the expectancy, as you mentioned, going into next year, I wonder if also you mentioned Brown. Mobley, not so much. Trae Young, not so much. I think Brown and Towns are the two right players that we would discuss and saying, maybe you have an argument for either one of those two being above Embiid for what they did a year ago.
And I could even see Trae getting a little bit of a redemption tour this year, just because I think they've had a pretty good offseason.
Yeah,
and
but
a lot of
still
times
not
a star
enough.
player tends to reflect that.
Yeah.
And also the East is just so weak. You could look at them and be like, I could easily see them being a top 4
But that's why I
seed.
wouldn't argue him being in the top 10, but not in front of Embiid.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, I'm not saying he would be in front of Embiid. I'm saying I could see like a little bit of a redemption arc for Trae, just because I think the Hawks themselves will do well. And the East is so diminished that they should have a relatively easy time walking into a pretty good seed.
Man, that front office did a good job this summer.
They did.
They really did a good job. All right, we'll come back. We'll keep this conversation going because obviously there's a name that we did not bring up that you guys are very familiar with. And we got to talk about if he should be on this list and maybe not his teammate. We'll get into that on the other side. It's the PHLY Sixers podcast on a Friday presented by Rothman Orthopedics. We'll talk about it on the other side. That young player that's not on this list. Ooh, omitted. Was it right? Wrong? We'll discuss it when we get back here on the PHLY Sixers podcast.
Trending Watford slander.
Maybe you feel good about that. And you're like, you know what? I'm frustrated because that name is not on the list. I need to go and visit Parks Casino and go have a good time and get this off my mind. I need to get this out of here and get this off my mind. Well, let me tell you about the good people at Parks Casino because, hey, man, we are back with a good spot here at the Excite Center where we're wrapping up the summer, but we're not trying to force it out of here. We're not trying to fast forward through the summer, but the summer is winding down, but you still have some dates and some entertainment that you would like to see, and you want to see it at a really good venue and a really cool place that has a lot to choose from, and that's the Excite Center at Parks Casino. One of the many things I love about my Parks Casino and my casino of choice. It's easily located in Bensalem. You can take the Street Road exit off of I-95 and the PA Turnpike. It's the #1 casino in the area, and it's very close to Philadelphia. The Excite Center is the state-of-the-art entertainment venue located inside Parks Casino. Named one of the best places to see the country's best comedians and music headliners. I've done so. I would say you do the same. If that's the type of talent that you're looking for, the type of show you're looking for, all you have to do is visit parkscasino.com to buy tickets for all shows, pregame the shows at their amazing beer garden, play some pop culture slots, roulette, cards, and other table games you love while you wait. I've done it. You should do it too. Take advantage of it. Parks Casino, this is how you win. You must be 21 and over. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, so I walked into my garage yesterday, and it felt like a sauna.
I got to tell you, Devon, this Philadelphia Heat, especially coming off a cool period, No joke.
All right, so here's what I did. I got like 10 bags of ice, and I made myself an ice bath to stay cool instead of turning on the AC.
But why wouldn't you just turn on your air conditioning?
Well,
Devon?
I was trying to be energy efficient. Go green, go birds, right? And little power dribble. Make sure I stay away from it.
Yeah, but instead of icing yourself out, you could just check out Pico's energy saving rebates. They've got deals on Energy Star cooling equipment that actually work, and they cut down your bills.
Hold on. So no more ice?
Unless it's an ice cold beer, Devon, we don't need to talk about ice.
That makes a lot of sense.
So everybody just head to pico.com/ways to save. They've got tips for everything. Heating, cooling, lighting, you name it. Don't resort to ice like my friend Devon over here.
Especially on today. It's a little bit different outside than the days we normally talk
Look
about
at that.
it.
Kyle, first of all, checking in from his vacation.
Yes, he
That's
is.
a professional. But, buddy, you might want to check the temperature because today was not a sauna.
It was not a sauna out there today. But like a sauna, that's what's going to get us our Emmy Award or whatever award we win. So appreciate it, everybody. Welcome back to the PHLY Sixers podcast presented by Rothman Orthopedics. We'll talk about something else a little bit later as we give you our Futures Bright segment coming up shortly. But got to tell you about the player that was left off the list. And to Sean Powell's credit, he puts him in the breakdown of, he mentioned the Achilles injuries with Tatum and Halliburton as to why they are not in the top 10. At the very end, before he gets to why everybody is ranked in their spots, starting with number 1 with Giannis, he says, therefore, with all due respect to Scotty Barnes of the Raptors, Bam Adebayo of the Heat, and Tyrese Maxey of the 76ers, all of whom just missed the cut. Then he lays out the top 10. Should Tyrese Maxey be in the top 10 with the names that were laid out in the actual top 10?
Probably not. Like, so you just spent all this time talking about, like, oh, the Knicks and the great regular season they had and how great Karl Anthony Towns was in the regular season. You're getting to the bottom of that list. You're talking about Trae Young, someone who we think could have a little bit of a resurgence, or at least, his reputation could be rehabilitated a little bit because of the season they've had and how many games they could win this year. Jaylen Brown's obviously incredible, and that's the back half of the top 10. And you've got Tyrese. How many games did Tyrese play last year? 52. 52. His efficiency was down. There's that, not that anyone expects the hand to be an injury concern, but he missed a lot of time last year. And when you're a borderline top 10 guy and you miss a lot of time, I understand not including him on the list. Do I think he could have a season that's capable of being a top 10 season, top 10 player in the East this year? Yeah, he could, especially if, and this is a weird combination, but if Joel Embiid's on the floor and if Tyrese is able to play off of him, then yeah, I think he can have a season at that level. But would I put him in there in a preseason ranking? I understand why you wouldn't.
Yeah, and I also understand why he brings him up as one who just missed the cut. Adebayo, Scotty Barnes as well. But to your point, you got some playoff performers in there that did some really good things, like Towns and Celtics with Brown, and it's going to be his team next season with Tatum out and all the other changes surrounding them. Kristaps Porzingis, I forgot to bring him up, who's now with the Atlanta Hawks. Trae Young, who had another all-star season, even though he was I think he was an injury replacement last year, but he was still an all-star. And that's who Trae Young is. So I don't think that Tyrese Maxey should have been over any of those other ones, but I do appreciate the fact that he was mentioned among those players. So if we were doing a 15 and you include the other 2 that are out with the injuries, Maxey would be a top 15 player in the Eastern Conference regardless.
Which feels about right.
Yeah,
He's probably like a 25 to 35 kind of player in the NBA. So
Yes.
you put him top 15-ish, borderline in the East. That feels about right. I think in order to truly get to where you're a consistent top 20 player in the league or top 20 player in your conference, you have to show that you can lead a team, lead an offense, have an offense built around you. And look, there will be people in chat, and I don't disagree with this, but people in chat pointing out like, well, when Kelly Oubre is your second best healthy player, you're probably going to be terrible offensively. And you're right. You're right. I do think some people go a little bit too far in saying that he can't lead a team. Like if you had a team that was perfectly constructed around him with a legit number 2, a legit number 3, and a healthy number 2 and number 3, could we see a better version of Tyrese Maxey? Of course we could. Is that, lead a team worthy? To be determined. I don't think he was in an optimal spot here, but I think to be ranked like ahead of Trae Young, you would have to have already proven that and he hasn't proven that.
And again, now that simply we don't know what that might look like, or what we kind of do, because we saw it a little unfair because of the Oubre piece, all the injuries that were surrounding. When he's out there on the floor with Joel Embiid, he is clearly one of the top 15 players in the league. And you could even argue that he's a top 6 player, a top 10 player in the league, especially when he made the All-Star team that year. Going into it, after the year is done and you go into the next campaign, you might have him in front of Trae Young. You might have him in front of some of the other players that are on this list. The tough part, obviously, is, all right, All-Star Scotty Barnes the same year as All-Star Tyrese Maxey. Then you get Darius Garland, who was an All-Star a year ago for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Drew Holiday was also in that conversation, in that mix too. So now you have players that are jumping in. Cade Cunningham jumps into this top 10, and Evan Mobley jumps into this top 10. Now you can swap out Mobley and Garland if you want based on what we're talking about a few seasons ago. But Maxey overall is going to be consistently among the top 15 best players in the Eastern Conference. And when he's having all-star caliber seasons, to Derek's point, that's where you elevate him back into that top 10 conversation, and certainly in that 25 to 30 when he is an all-star among the best in the entire league. So when Embiid is out there and Embiid is performing the way that he is, along with Tyrese Maxey as his running mate, or maybe even leading a little bit, because Joel takes a bit of a step back and allows Maxey to run the show, then he's obviously one that would be a little bit higher.
Yeah.
A little bit higher.
And look, these lists don't matter. Like, they're great talking points.
Oh, yeah.
Especially in the offseason.
It's July 30th when this drops, so it's absolutely, yes.
But, like, my point is, like, I don't sit here and get upset if somebody has him, like, 13th, and I think he should be 10th. I think that's one thing that I just don't waste my energy on. The only thing I really care about is how well does he fit on the team? How well does he fit with the pieces around him? And can he help elevate the team with his skill set and with the way that he can grow into being a little bit more each and every year, 1% better every day, as he loves to talk about. And that I believe he lives by the way. And I think he checks those boxes, especially if Joel Embiid is healthy. So a lot of this will come down to, like, if Joe, I said this earlier, but if Joe is healthy, Tyrese will get a lot more respect. Not even because Tyrese is necessarily doing anything differently, just because he has somebody who can help make Tyrese the best version of himself. He has somebody whose skill set he can play off of to an elite degree. And that kind of synergy, it really is a shame. Because, obviously you had some great two-man game with, Embiid and Redick earlier, but Redick wasn't to the level of Tyrese. And Redick couldn't really make Joel better like Tyrese can. It was more Joel making, JJ better. Then you got to, Harden, but that was brief. And again, quite frankly, it's not like Harden was playing off of Embiid as much as Harden was just able to get Joe to that spot with that pocket pass, and that mid-range jumper. This is the first time where I really feel like you have two players who play exceptionally well off of each other and whose skill sets just fit perfectly. And when we were sitting there in that Knicks series, and Joe could barely walk, like he could barely walk. And as more information comes out, it's even more amazing what he was able to do. And even still, against a good defense in a high-stakes environment with Joel completely crippled, they just looked like if you gave them like a 5-year runway where they could learn to play off of each other and they were both at their physical peaks, you could have had something truly, truly remarkable. Unfortunately, you got really none because Joel Embiid was hampered in that playoff run. He hasn't been the same since. And it does feel like there's a chance this could end up being one of the real what-ifs in Sixers history, certainly in recent Sixers history. I hope that's not true. I hope Joel Embiid finds his footing and is able to come back, maybe not at the 30-plus point per game MVP level, but at least at a way where we could see this, pairing and this on-court relationship grow, because it really is the first time where I felt like Joel Embiid actually has a running mate where they both make each other better.
Yeah, and he dropped, 50 in the one game.
Yep.
He averaged 33 in the series, even
and
still.
Barely was effective, barely tried to score in the fourth quarter. He was like doing that through 3 quarters.
Right. And that's what makes things so clearly we want to see him at his very best so we can see how this whole thing plays out for the team, how it plays out for Maxey and George and everybody else on down the line, because they have talent on the roster. Do they have a talented roster, though, that can win in the Eastern Conference? We'll find out. But if he is at his best, he uplifts so much with this basketball team, starting with Maxey and others, that sure, he can be right back in the mix, and they could be right back in the mix. So I was looking at our because we always post our show topic ahead of time on Twitter at our team account, PHLY_Sixers. If you're not following, please go do so. And Moose on the response says, that's crazy high because Embiid's career is unfortunately cooked. It's virtually over. He has no meniscus left. He'll try to play this year, but what happened last year will happen again. I wish I was wrong, but I have no hope. And this is where we are now.
Oh, yeah.
10 years later, where we are getting ready for his, is this going to be his 11th season? Technically in the NBA overall since he was
Including
drafted.
the first two?
Including the first two.
Sounds right, because it was
10 or
2014
11.
draft, right?
Yeah, so year 11 going in, but year 9 on the floor for him. And it's unfortunate that injuries have done this where Moose has to feel this way.
Yeah.
And he's still super talented. Last time we saw him in a meaningful situation in the playoffs, he was 33 average a game and dropped a 50 spot against the Knicks and couldn't move, but still did that stuff enough to force a game 6 against the New York Knicks, who are very good. So, I mean, I understand why people feel this way when it comes to still discussing.
Yeah. And it's just such a shame because he was, 29 when Kuminga fell on his knee?
Yeah.
Like he still had a couple years. And look, I don't want to, as I say that, I recognize that it sounds like I am agreeing with he's cooked. I don't know. I can't tell you that I believe he will come back to being himself, but I'm also not going to completely dismiss it just because there have been instances in the past of even big men coming back from knee problems and being very good, or at least extending their careers quite a bit. But like, I understand people who have been hurt so much that they just can't fully trust. Like, I get it. It sucks.
Yep. All right.
really
Where
sucks.
does before we take our final pause, Paul George nowhere near this list anymore.
No.
Yeah.
Which is funny because, like, before the Sixers signed him, he was like a top 30 player in the league.
Did he make the All-Star team that year?
I think so. I think he made the All-Star team last year with LA. Yeah.
Yeah, because he played 70-plus games. LA was still at the very top. Ethan is saying yes. He made the All-Star team that year. So he was in the top 25 that year.
Yep.
Yeah. And a year later, he's can't even sniff this list.
He made back-to-back All-Star games.
He sure
Clippers.
did.
Yeah.
23-24. But he can't sniff this list right now.
Well, he barely played basketball last year.
Yeah, well, he played more than Embiid.
He did, but he also his scoring average fell by 7 points per game.
Yes,
too,
it
so.
did. Yeah. So he's not there. Will they have 3 players in the top 20 in the Eastern Conference by the time the season comes to an end next year? That's why you have to tune in and find out. All right, on the other side, when we come back, we'll talk about another publication that put out something with some overrated players. And I wanted to ask Derek about that. We'll do that. Plus, we'll also give you the Future is Bright for Somebody. We'll tell you who that is when we get back on this Friday on the PHLY Sixers podcast, presented by I Will Tell You on the Other Side. Why? It's because our good people from Rothman Orthopedics, our show sponsor, our presenting sponsor, Rothman Orthopedics. If you were feeling a little down, I was just talking to one of my good people, and they were talking about a little injury that they sustained, and then the first thing that came in mind, Rothman Orthopedics. Got to go to Rothman. We've all been there trying to power through those summer plans. Some things happen, little freak accidents, right? These things, you're like, oh, man, now I got to deal with this. I can ignore it. Please don't ignore it. I'm with you. I had that same mindset until it's too late, and now it's even worse, and you have to go get it checked out. But if you do, you go to Rothman Orthopedics, and they'll get you right. That's why we trust Rothman, because, hey, it's time to call those experts, and they are, in fact, those experts. Whether it's running on the beach, swinging your golf clubs, swimming, and all of a sudden you're like, you know what? Maybe I was using my shoulder a little bit too much. It wasn't helping out, and I need to get it checked out. Lifting the little ones as you're having some fun with them for a pool day. Rothman's and their specialists, they are here to treat you with whatever's holding you back. Their top-tier care will have you moving and enjoying every minute of the summer. Rothman proudly serves dozens of communities across Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Florida, with 30-plus convenient offices, urgent cares, and walk-in centers, including 3 right here in the Philadelphia area located in Center City, Northeast, and the very new spot at the Navy Yard. Go check them all out if you need to get looked at. If pain is slowing you down this season, take the first step. Head to rothmanortho.com/PHLY and schedule your appointment today. Rothman Orthopedics, your summer, your mobility, their mission.
You know, Devon, I always think I'm a handyman. I always think I'm a handyman.
You are.
Until I start trying to do the actual work. And then I realize that I need Ace Hardware's help. If you've got an outlet that you said you'd fix last summer, which I actually do, believe it or not, at Ace Hardware Home Services, they've got the person to fix that. Because now they're not just the helpful hardware folks, they're also the helpful home service and repair folks. From plumbing and electrical to heating and cooling, they've got the trusted pros to keep your home humming all year long. Ace Hardware Home Services, they're bringing helpful home, the helpful you love, from the store now to your front door, from Philly to the Jersey Shore. Visit Ace Hardware Home Services online at acehardwarehomeservices.com to get you started on your next project.
Welcome back to the PHLY Sixers podcast presented by Rothman Orthopedics. We need to tell you right now, though, about the future being bright for someone. The future is bright, presented by Shady Rays. Derek, future is bright for one. I'm so happy this happened for him. Ricky Council signed a one-year deal, according to Shams, with the Brooklyn Nets.
Yes.
So I didn't see anything else where it was like a minimum deal.
I think it's partial guarantee.
Partial guarantee?
I mean, whenever they don't list the terms, it's usually a minimum.
All right, so future's bright for I was about to say Shake Milton. Not for Shake Milton because he got let go. Well, it is actually bright for him because he did get a 2-year contract overseas. That being said, the future is bright for Ricky Council because he did bounce back pretty quickly.
Yeah.
We were discussing, all three of us, was it a little bit too late? Could the Sixers have done him a little more favor of
still
giving
think
him
they
an
could have,
opportunity
but I'm glad he bounced back.
But he bounced
quickly,
back pretty quickly. Brooklyn Nets, what do you think of this for Ricky Council?
I mean, look, if you listen to the show the other day, like, Ricky frustrates me. He, like, legitimately, properly frustrates me. I don't think I'm unwarranted with my frustration, but I think some people are like, oh, well, hey, you dislike him. No, Ricky was great. Like, he was fantastic. When he was on the show with us, he was fantastic. In the locker room, he was fantastic. When we were at that, what event were we at last year?
The gala.
The gala last year, he was just a great kid who takes terrible shots. So I'm going to sit here and hope that he figures it out because I do think he works hard enough on it. I do think, you know, he plays hard enough when he's on the floor. He's got to be trustworthy. And I'm glad he's getting another shot. You know, I think he better take this seriously and really listen to coaching because when you're 23 going on 24, you only have so many different times that you're going to have a chance. And even this one, it sounds like it's a partial guarantee. And I think the Nets currently have like 16 or 17 players under contract. So a couple of those players with partial guarantees aren't going to make it. So he's not guaranteed. But I'm happy he got another shot. I do hope he makes the most of it because I do think somewhere in there's an NBA player, but it's going to take, you know, a little more playing within the system than he's shown so far.
Now, this past season, the Sixers were right there with the Brooklyn Nets. We talked about them a lot of, hey, Brooklyn, you win, Sixers lose. So they were that bad last season. But before that, he was helpful for a playoff team. We thought he was going to be helpful for another playoff team. It turned around and it was a little bit different where it wasn't a playoff team. It was a bad team like the Brooklyn Nets, but the stakes were still the same. Going into this spot, they have a different runway, the Brooklyn Nets do, than the Sixers. Like we talked about Ace Bailey and some others where they even pointed out they want to be able to make mistakes. He couldn't make mistakes here. He probably can there with Jordi Fernandez as they try to get a look for these types of players. So is it a good opportunity for him where it's a place that, number one, he does have to do the things that you talk about, listening to the coach, et cetera, not trying to hijack the offense. He can't do that with Cam Thomas and Michael Porter Jr. Anyway,
you've got two people already hijacking the offense.
That. So, but is it a good spot for him to, you know what, I need to level set here and I need to get my feet back underneath me here in the NBA. This is a good place versus another playoff team.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's a good shot in the sense, or a good spot in the sense that, like, I think they'll give him a fair evaluation.
Yeah.
Like, I think they're looking for a guy that can bring him on a minimum who can then maybe outperform that and show some long-term upside and potential. So I think it's a good spot in that regard. You know, and a good spot because they have like 85 passers on that team. So, like, outside of their ball hogs, they've got some passers. But no, I think he'd probably thrive with a little more structure. And I think that's probably one spot where, like, maybe Nick wasn't necessarily the best spot for him because Nick doesn't have a strict, rigid offensive system. I think some coach that can really get him to buy into his role, play within a structure, and just focus, like, limit what he's focusing on is probably where he should be. But that kind of team also probably doesn't give him very long of a leash.
Long leash,
So-
no, but just to start there
Yeah.
and understand what they're asking of
Yeah.
them.
No, I probably would have picked a different team, if I'm being honest.
What kind of team? Back end playoff team? Maybe somebody right on the cusp?
I mean, Denver always feels like the exact right answer just because they have the genius running the
Okay.
show.
Yeah. All right. Well, but no, looking at the Brooklyn Nets roster, immediately I thought of Zaire Williams. I thought of him.
Mhm.
I thought of who else was I thinking about quickly? Tyrese Martin, the local product, who got another chance. Sometimes when you go from that one spot, and in their cases, the Grizzlies and the Hawks, respectively, for both Williams and Martin,
Yeah.
and now here, and again, Martin
Hawks
in
would be a
particular,
good spot. Yeah.
yeah, the Hawks would. Martin in particular was on a non-guaranteed as well,
Yeah.
and he had to earn it. But now we saw it work out. We saw it happen there. There are, Drake Powell. We know Drake Powell's coming in as a young one. He's locked in. Jalen Wilson is still a pretty good NBA player, I think. So I think he's locked in. And just looking at positionally where he is, I'm very curious to see how it goes. Dariq Whitehead didn't really play much last year, the Duke product, because remember he had the injury coming out of Duke and all. I want to see. I hope it works out for him. So I hope it works out for him. So nice bounce back for Ricky, at least pretty fast after being waived by the 76ers. He lands on his feet with the Brooklyn Nets, non-guaranteed, but and again, an opportunity for Ricky Council with the Brooklyn Nets.
I was just gonna say I'm a tiny bit surprised that he would sign a non-guaranteed 1-year minimum deal this early. Like, it felt like if you were gonna sign something early, it should have a little more guarantee to it.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I guess maybe they realized it might not have been out there.
And he might get some time there, so maybe it's just a team.
Exactly. So the future is bright. Presented by Shady Rays, the future is bright for, knock on wood for him, Ricky Council, and keeping his feet underneath him in the NBA. All right, let's get to the next conversation that we wanted to pivot to that I wanted to throw to Derek. Derek is going to this one cold, everybody, just like you guys are. So going into this one cold, but I did tell him that this was an overrated conversation put together by Bleacher Report. So Bleacher Report put together...
And this is recent, right?
This is recent,
Okay.
yes. Bleacher Report put together top 5 overrated NBA players. Now, just let everybody know, I don't want to scare anybody. No Sixers are on this top 5 list, so you're good.
Yeah.
Here are the 5.
Okay.
Number 5, De'Aaron Fox.
Okay.
Would you consider him an overrated player?
2 years ago, I think I would have. I
He
think
was an all-star.
Yeah, but like when they were winning games, I think he was pretty highly rated. I think he's come back down to earth in terms of rating over the last 2 years. In part because I think his defense has just never quite been what it should have been, and what I think a lot of people expected. But in part because his shooting is just so volatile and streaky. That 2 years ago, I would have said he's overrated, and maybe we need to see a higher sample size of success before we rate him where I think he was being rated at that time. But I think it's come back down to earth a little bit. So,
and I haven't checked any top 100 lists to see exactly where he is in the top 100.
Yeah.
I'd imagine he's still on there,
yeah.
but he's not as high as he probably was in the other rankings. Number 4, from the Lakers, Austin Reeves.
See, now that one I get, even though I like Austin Reeves a lot, whenever there is a semi-good player on the Lakers, they automatically get
I
overrated.
agree 100%. And I like Austin Reeves
I like
too,
him a lot. Yeah.
but he's not a big 3 player.
Yeah.
When they would talk about him with Anthony Davis and LeBron James, he's a big 3, or now with Luka Doncic, LeBron James, and Austin Reeves. He's not a big 3 type of player.
Yeah.
He's a good player, and he's probably a starter on
He's a starter.
20-plus teams in the NBA. He's a starter on that team. He's not a...
Even if he's not a 3, he might be an elite 4.
I agree.
Absolutely. And he might be a 3, but like people talk about him like it's mostly an LA thing. I think it's mostly an LA fan problem. Yeah.
And you're happy about it because he undrafted player. He did what he did to get to the spot. Played on Team USA qualifying team and all that stuff. Good story.
That being said, if you're going to compare him to someone like Fox, I think someone like Reeves is so easy to put on almost every team in the league that maybe his value might not be overrated, like his value across the league. It's more just Lakers fans overrated.
But he is good. He is good.
He is very good.
He is very good as a player. Number 3. This one I know we're going to disagree on.
Okay.
Jaren Jackson Jr.
Okay.
Because I know you like him more than I
like
do.
him a lot.
Yes. Not that I don't think he is a top defensive player,
He's-
one that is discussed as a building block and all that. He is a building block.
Absolutely.
I don't rate him as highly as you do.
That being said, I think he might be a little bit overrated.
Slightly overrated.
Just because there are still he's an analytics darling. And look, he is a big man who can be a defensive player of the year, who can also stretch the floor. That rebounding is a no-joke limitation. And especially when you're talking about a defensive archetype, look, you don't have to be a dominant defensive rebounder. Like Joel Embiid was at times good. Now he's below average, frankly, for his position, or at least for his size. But Jaren Jackson Jr. is way worse. Like, you have to at least be able to control the glass to some degree to, I think, be rated as highly as he is. Now, look, I still think he's a defensive player of the year caliber player. I still think he's a max contract kind of player. But I do think there are some people who look at him maybe a little bit too highly. And look, I think he's, like I said, over the last 2 years, he's gotten better as a scorer. He's gotten better and more consistent as a shooter. He's still that defensive player of the year caliber player. He led the league in blocks a couple times.
Yeah.
I think he's a true foundational player defensively. So I think I'm probably higher on him than you, but I understand why he would be on this list because he does have a weakness that you have to account for with the rest of your roster construction.
And SB says, SB Cole, good friend SB Cole in the chat says, Jaren Jackson Jr. is the star in Memphis.
Well, because the other one
Can't stay on
isn't
the floor.
always on the floor.
Yeah, healthy or the off the court stuff overall.
And
Desmond
like
Bane is
if
gone.
we're comparing him to like Bane, who's obviously not there, but was like, yeah, I like him a lot better than Bane.
Who do you like more, he or Mobley?
I think
Is that a fair?
no? It's I mean it's fair because of the archetype.
Yeah,
I think I like Jaren more offensively.
I like him more offensively, but I feel like I trust Evan Mobley more. If that's fair, too.
I would probably go Jaren Jackson.
Yeah, I will go Mobley over him.
Yeah. I mean, look, Mobley is fantastic.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, but we're talking about two big men that are defensive candidates, player of the year candidates.
I mean, they both want it, right?
And they both want it.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to throw that one at you because I like Mobley over Junior.
I do think Jaren Jackson's relatively, especially for a center, like he is a high volume 3-point shooting center. And that combination has always been an archetype that I probably overrate a little bit. So for him to be like borderline elite at both shooting and at rim protection and growing a little bit and becoming a little bit better of not necessarily a playmaker, but at least like a DHO initiator type, I think Jaren Jackson Jr. is incredible. So like when I say he might be overrated, it's more that I think some people have run a little bit too far with the narrative than it is actually a criticism of him. Yeah. That being said, like I think he's one of the most unique archetypes in the league.
No, he is. He is. And look, his shooting is way better than Mobley's. And even with the weird hitch, how it looks and how it comes off as the release and the form and all that stuff, it goes in at a decent clip.
And it's been going in pretty consistently for the last 3 years. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. Mobley, not so much. But I just feel like I trust Mobley more. And especially the in-between game.
Yeah.
I feel like that mid-range game, Mobley can knock that down more consistently. I feel like back to the basket and things off the dribble, I feel like I can trust Mobley a little bit more than Jaren Jackson. Because I think Jaren Jackson will try to get cute with things. Where I think Mobley understands what his handle is, who is handled, what he's doing, whatever he's doing for, and who's in front of him, and he goes and does those things. That's why I trust him.
So he was third on this list?
He was third.
See, I think that's too high. I would not put him, like he might be a tiny bit overrated by some, especially in the analytics community.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's the third most overrated player in the league. That's too much of a correction.
Right. So quickly, Kobe Cove says slightly a tiny bit with Mobley there, agreeing on that one. Gene says he also agrees with Mobley, and Winona also says Mobley in this one just slightly. So Jaren Jackson Jr., though, you put him on my basketball team, I feel like he's going to help me win, and he's going to be my power forward. He's starting. But I would take just the opposite. I would take Mobley over him, just slightly over. But that's a good problem to have when you're talking about those two guys in particular. Yep. Number 2, as we run through these, Tyler Hero. Number 2 on the most overrated, top 5 overrated list. Amen Thompson would agree.
Yeah, probably a little bit.
Yeah, he's kind of like, I know.
Then again, like his trade value, especially when he started talking about like the Dame trade talks, like it seemed like his trade value, like people were talking about him as a negative contract and stuff. So the only reason I would say he's not overrated anymore is because, again, I think he probably was overrated, and public sentiment probably swung a little bit too far in the other direction.
Made the All-Star team a year ago.
Yeah, but then again, people are talking about the Heat as a top 6 team with pretty much just him and Bam, and so it's like, I guess maybe he is a little bit overrated. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't have much to offer on that one. He can score. I like him. Sometimes I don't like him. right?
Yes.
He's kind of like, I like him. All right, he's driving me crazy as I'm watching this game. It's not like some other levels, like we talk about Cam Thomas or anything, but it's whatever, you know.
He probably should be more in that 20-point per game third option role. They just don't have any,
Yes.
like they lost Jimmy
They lost
Butler,
Jimmy
so now he's
Butler.
going to be asked to do too much.
And then Bam Adebayo disappears a little bit too much.
Yeah.
Where, you know, he's not on this list, but I'm just saying he disappears a little bit too much where Tyler Hero is like, all right, cool. I'll do it. He has that mentality. Cool.
Yeah.
You don't want to do it?
Eugene
I
with a
got
good point. He is especially overrated by Pat Riley.
Yes, he is, Gene. Yes, he is. Brian B. Knight, our good friend, says Hero is definitely in the top 5, overrated as well. All right, finally, do you have a guess of who number 1 might be after these names that I've run at you? Everybody throw it in there in the chat really fast before I reveal the number 1 if you haven't seen this list.
Is it an inefficient, high turnover point guard who barely plays?
Yes.
Okay. Is it LaMelo?
Yes. It is LaMelo. Fair?
Yeah, I think it's fair.
I think so,
I think
too.
it's fair. Look, at some point you got to stay on the floor.
Yeah.
At some point you've got to win something. And look, their on-offs are much better with him on the court, clearly. But yeah, look, I think this might also be my bias because he drives me insane every time I watch him. And the passing, look, I will never deny the passing and the creativity, and especially the open floor stuff is just incredible. He takes so many BS shots,
Those
and he misses so much time.
threes from 26 feet away from basket.
Yeah. So no, he would have made my top 5 for sure.
Yeah.
sure.
I mean, Kobe says LaMelo is so overrated. Yeah. I mean, he has such a runway to do whatever the hell he wants there because they're bad. He draws people to the seats because of his flair and how he plays the game. But yeah, man.
And look, he's been better, quite frankly, than I thought when he was coming in the league. Like I did not love the way he played basketball, and he's been better than I expected.
His All-Star year was phenomenal, but that was probably his best basketball.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was his best basketball. So we all know it's there.
I would love to see him on like in a different structure and a different team and a more competent team that has more help around him.
Watch and see how long James Harden plays with the Clippers. We'll see if he ends up in Los Angeles like maybe some of his family might want. So there's that. So
why does he have a vocal family member?
Couple of them. So the top 5: De'Aaron Fox at 5, Austin Reeves 4, Jaren Jackson Jr. 3, Tyler Hero 2, and LaMelo Ball 1. That's the Bleacher Report's top 5 overrated NBA players. Flip it a little bit here. Are there any overrated, and we bring this local now, are there any overrated Sixers players?
Currently or?
Currently.
Well, I think we've spent, and by we, I mean like Philadelphia and really basketball community at large, have spent the last 12 months beating them all up. So I'm not sure there's any that are currently overrated. I mean, you could certainly say like Quentin Grimes because of the stats he put up towards the end. I think some people, and I'm not making this argument, some people would say Tyrese Maxey because he hasn't been able to lead a team when he's been asked to. Again, a lot of times his second best offensive player has been Kelly Oubre, which should never happen, is never going to lead to winning basketball. Kelly Oubre, I think, used to be overrated.
Yeah, I think he's fine now.
I think people have come to realize his warts and appreciate what he brings.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Just because Paul George and Joel have been beaten down so much by frustrated fans.
I agree. All right, final one locally. Who is the most overrated Sixer player of the last 5 years?
Of the last 5.
So that would go to what? Last 19, 20?
Okay.
Right? 20.
Overrated.
Last Sixer, the most overrated Sixer for the last 5 years. All of you. What do you guys think?
So, do you want me to answer or do you want
I want you to answer, but I want theirs too.
It used to be 12. Because there was a time.
But why is it used to? If he is, he just is.
Well, no. I mean, if you would have asked me this like 3 years ago, I would have said Tobias Harris. Because he was still rated relatively. And people are like, oh, I can't believe he hasn't made an all-star team. But that pendulum has swung so far that at this current time, he is not overrated. He was overrated by the collaborative front office, unfortunately. Overrated twice, both when you acquired him and when you gave him that new contract. But I don't think he's overrated by the fan base anymore.
I'm seeing 12 in there, seeing
I mean,
Simmons in there.
Ben was overrated.
I would disagree that he was overrated. I thought he was properly rated. I thought he was that good for.
Look, he was good.
Despite the shooting
he was
stuff,
good.
I still think because of the defense.
No, his defense was all world.
Yes.
He was one of the 5 to 10 best defenders in the world.
So that's why I think he wasn't overrated.
But I think his first 2 years in the league, there were a lot of people willing to overlook the fact that he would not shoot. And I think we underrated how much of an impact that had on your offense. And so in doing so, overrated the impact he was having offensively. Defensively, he was incredible.
Yeah.
And I was a defender of Ben for a lot.
So was I.
Because I think a lot of people overlook that defense. So it's weird. On the one hand, I think his defense and his impact was probably underrated. Because you've seen since he's left, like they have not been a consistently good rebounding team. They've not even really been a consistently good defensive team. Part of that's because Joel Embiid's been out of the lineup more over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
But his impact defensively was, I think, underrated by a lot of people. And it gave them so much scheme diversity and flexibility that you could do a lot of stuff and you could overcome a lot of bad defensive guards in the backcourt. Like you could overcome Seth Curry. You could overcome Tyrese Maxey easier earlier in his career. But I do think, he would put up points and assists on offense. And I don't think the impact, especially in the half court, ever matched that. And I think we saw that at times in the playoffs.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, listen, I think it's a fair argument. And I asked that question because I figured his name would be one that would be at the top of everybody's mind.
And again, it's weird because on the one hand, like I want to defend him because I think the defense is underrated. But I do think at times, especially early in his career, there were a lot of people that were just like, oh, the shooting's not a problem. We'll just run a...
Oh, no, it was a problem.
We'll just run a snug pick and roll and everything will be great.
No, I defended the guy, but the shooting was a problem because I thought the other stuff was so impactful that while you can, complain, the pros were so good that even with that con, it was like,
That being said, I'm being a little hypocritical, right? Because earlier I was like, well, 3 years ago I would have said Tobias was overrated. Now I think he's, not. But, well, that's the same case with Ben because I don't think anybody really overrates Ben now. I think they did a couple years ago and early on in his career. But like I said, I think the pendulum has swung and he was a legitimately great defensive player.
Yes, he was. And he's still out there looking for a job, still linked. Reports are to the Knicks, so we'll see how that plays out. As far as 12 goes, I still think.
What do you got? Who do you got outside of those two? Because those are like the obvious ones.
Now that you threw that back on me, shame on you. Wow, overrated. Damn.
Melt was probably a little overrated. I don't think his
amongst the fan base, probably.
Because I don't think his...
But I looked at him as for what he was. Because I always thought, I always thought he was a six man. That was him at his best.
But he was asked to be more than that here.
And clearly that's not his fault, and he did his best that he could in that role.
But, there's limitations that come with a short guard, even one with relatively long arms. Like, he's a good defender, but I don't think he was ever great because I think it was tough for him and his archetype to be a great defender. And outside of shooting, which was a little bit streaky, and we all know about the layups.
Yeah, I don't think there's anybody else of, real significance that I would say weren't rated properly. So I would say that's fair with Melton.
He was a non-star that came to mind first for me.
Yeah, because Buddy Hield, we rated him, but we also knew that he was
They gave up second-round picks for him.
Yeah, and you can shoot yourself in, you can shoot yourself out, that kind of thing. So, but good. That was interesting.
Shake.
Question.
Colby Coles with a good call out there. Shake. Matisse was at times overrated.
Matisse probably was overrated.
Yeah.
I mean, even with the defense as good as he was making those all-NBA teams, on ball sometimes, he would get himself in some really bad trouble.
We just had so many defensive players where we were making excuses for them not shooting. It's like, can we just get one guy who can make an open shot for the love of...
All right, finally, Brian Lewis of the New York Post is saying that, according to a source, that Cam Thomas believes that he shouldn't be viewed as a lesser player than Tyler Hero, as we mentioned, R.J. Barrett, or Emmanuel Quickly.
Nah, see, look, we might have been talking about Tyler Hero as overrated.
$30 million.
If you're saying Cam Thomas is your comp, then apparently Tyler Hero is underrated.
You're fine, right? Right. So I just wanted to throw that out there since we talked about him quite a bit. We threw the other names out there before, Barrett and Quickly, because of their contracts, special circumstances, bad decisions by the organization. Tyler Hero, he's way better
There is no world where I would be on a team paying Cam Thomas $30 million a year to play basketball.
No, sir. No, sir. All right, that'll do it for us, everybody, here on this Friday. It's a walk-away day for me, too. So while Kyle and Bree are already on vacation, my vacation starts now. So all next week, you got Derek and Rich. They will be here with you. And Ethan will be here as well. So, of course, everybody, I want to say thank you for everything that you guys do for us. I'll see you when we get back in the week. Let's get to the roll call, though. The world-famous roll call to shut the show down.
Don't know how many we'll get to here, but we'll give it a shot. First off, we want to start off with Eugene Ross.
What up, Gene?
A.A. Ron,
Aaron.
which I love seeing his full name in there because you done messed up, buddy. D Flyers, Winona, as always.
Hey, Nona.
Colby.
Go.
The Court Jester, SB Cole, Money Mar, Smy Guy.
What up, Mar?
Brian Knight.
B-Night.
Wawa Marvel, Lost Sleep TV.
I'm not losing sleep on vacation.
Well, you might tonight because we got some Papa Shot championships to
8
watch.
p.m.
We got to
Yes,
do
we
a
do.
little bit of scouting tonight, buddy.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Smy Guy, Brian. No, I said that. Line Wen.
Lean in.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Superhero 18, Martian Lynch. Saw Yams in there earlier. I think I said Brian
Saw
Knight.
Martian in there as well.
Martian was in there. Yeah.
Mom was in there. Everybody, we thank you. We're up against the clock. Make sure you go like and subscribe. Hit the like button. When you do, you get the bell icon alert. Tell you that it's showtime. Everybody have a great weekend, a great week. I'll be checking in from afar, but see you.
Not too much.
We all silly like the mayor.